So we begin with these words of Hazrat Pir Murshid Inayat Khan. He says, our soul is blessed with the impression of the glory of God whenever our lips praise thee. So we return to the prayer song. And in March, we practice the prayer song using a guided visualization to activate our imagination and to accompany the words and the movements of the prayer. So this is a beginning of a deeper study and contemplation, focusing on a few phrases of the prayer song in relation to the teachings of Murshid Inayat Khan. So this series begins with these first three phrases of the prayer song. Praise be to thee, most supreme God, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-pervading, the only being. So it seems there may have been Murids during Murshid's time who questioned offering praise to God, because he says this, we question, why does God need praise from us? Who are we that we should praise God? We can never praise God enough, and our praise can never be sufficient. But at the same time, our soul is blessed with the impression of the glory of God whenever our lips praise thee. So Murshid offers us this practice, the prayer song, to begin our day. And with our first words in the praise to God, the most supreme. It's like, what does that mean? Most supreme. Supreme meaning the greatest in quality, the greatest in intensity, the highest, the ultimate or final goal. And in calling upon the most supreme, we're reaching our imagination towards the highest ideal possible for us. And this is difficult because in some ways it's beyond words that can express this being. So in the lineage of Western Sufism of Hazrat Inayat Khan, he gave many practices to his murids, or students at the time, in English. And he also gave some select names of Allah, known as wazifas, to murids as they progressed on the spiritual path. So English was an important language that he used in his time to give the teachings and for us to attune to. And so we learn through Murshid's teachings also that the vibration of sound is so important in the mysticism of sound. This vibration of sound through the instrument of our being. And the English language, not being a mantric language, doesn't have a sound code of meaning like Arabic or Sanskrit. But nevertheless, I thought, let's explore these English names of the God ideal and feel the vibration of their vowels and consonants. So we're going to begin with the ideal, the most supreme. And the first syllable of supreme is Su. So let's just intone that together. Su. So where did you feel that vibration? Yeah, it's in here. So that's important when we're doing this, to note the vibration, because these sounds have a vibration in this instrument of our being. And so, did you notice that other word is part of our Sufi practice that's in Su? Did you hear the ooh? So in the Physicians of the Heart, we learned that Hu is present as an unspoken secret in the name Allah, as the essence of the essence. And this essence, this secret, is love. And I thought, what a wonderful thing to have that now in my imagination and in my thought and in my feeling, that Su holds Hu, that breath, Hu. So now let's intone it with the second syllable. So we have supreme. And note what happens with the P sound on preen as we intone this. There's like a puff in the breath. And then the eem. Note the vibration of the M sound that is formed as we close our lips to make that sound. What happens with that sound? Is there a direction or movement that takes place with that vibration? So intoning supreme. So did you feel the M? What happens with that sound, eem? Anybody?
Feel it up here. That's one of the seed syllables for Saraswati.
That's exactly right.
It's one of the seed syllables for Saraswati. Om Aim Ee Saraswati Namaha. It's amazing, Jacob. Saraswati, of course, brought forth all language and music and art.
Thank you for that. So, in our English language are these relationships to these sounds and these other meanings too. Now, I was also thinking about that, with the sound rising up into the cavity of the head, and you can feel it touching up in here. And you can continue to practice this too if you like. But this is like the movement that accompanies the prayer. We begin with raising our palms upward around the head in receptivity to the most supreme. So that vibration rises, just like we lift our hands up in praise to the God ideal. So there's that relationship of vibration, sound, and movement. And our body, our thought, our feeling feels that upliftment in praise. And it fulfills the impression. And that impression becomes more deeply written upon our heart, rising towards the ideal. So as conveyed in these words of Murshid we heard in the teachings in March, action is also psychological. It makes pictures in every atom of the body of the thought which is behind it. Every atom of the body prays, even the blood cells. The whole being becomes a prayer. So with adding the vibration, the intonation of the words and the vibration, it even takes that further for me, is to feel the vibration of those words along with the movements. Now remember, following our praise to the most supreme, we bring our hands near to our ears we're listening, we're tuning to these ideals of the most supreme, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-pervading. So exploring the sound vibration of omnipotent. Note that it begins with om, O-M, but pronounced like A-U-M. Om. It's the primordial sound of creation, the supreme creator. Now, om is followed by nipotent. And we're going to sound this together. So again, listen to this. Ne is almost like this staccato-like sound. And then we have po, potent, omnipotent. It's like ne activates the breath, the po. And then we have tent. So let's intone omnipotent together. And what happened at the end of tent? Did you hear that? It was like the breath releases that into the atmosphere. The omnipotent is activated into the atmosphere. And the meaning of omnipotent is the property of being all-powerful. And in a peer-reviewed academic resource for philosophy, I came across this meaning of omnipotent. It is one of the traditional divine attributes in Western conceptions of God. This notion of an all-powerful being is often claimed to be incoherent, because a being who has the power to do anything would, for instance, have the power to draw a round square. So this is like a Zen koan. You know, it's the paradox. But I love this because, you know, think about it. If you draw a circle, you don't necessarily see a square, but the square is hidden within the circle and even outside the circle. If you draw a square, the circle is hidden within the square and also can be drawn outside the square. So although they exist separately in divine geometry, they exist in unity. And then, if you think about it, if you draw a circle and then the square, and then you draw another circle around that and then the square, and you keep repeating that pattern, it's like a vibration. It continues into infinity, infinitude. This is omnipresent. So, omnipresent. Let's intone that together. We begin with the om again. Now, did you feel the direction or the movement of that vibration in a different way than omnipotent or similar? You're smiling, Steve?
Well, that makes me feel like a kite that gets let go.
That's right.
It's just open to, it just lets go. I keep seeing that.
Anyone else? For me, in the present, the zunt actually dropped down the vibration, and I felt it more in the lower regions rather than rising up. And it seemed to ground that. And it's almost, I felt like, bringing into presence, bringing on into presence in this being, this instrument here.
I think the PR consonant cluster is really interesting for me because the P stops the voice and then the R is the semivowel that just starts very small and then opens up into the vowel that comes after it. So it sounds like one of those little passage where like presence is emerging out of the space that way.
Yeah, beautiful. To me, it adds to have that feeling of vibration to accompany the attunement of the prayer. Now, the philosophical meaning of omnipresent in relation to God is this: present everywhere at the same time. It's like another paradox. And this leads to all pervading, which further expands the scope of this ideal, present everywhere at the same time. So we hear in the ideal, all pervading, the first syllable sound of Allah. So let's just intone all together. Did you hear it? What happened at the end of all?
Like a hug. It was like a hug.
And did you feel anything in your breath?
It doesn't let you stop.
Huh?
It doesn't get stopped.
It doesn't get stopped. And also, when that vibration on the breath, it's inaudible, but the la of Allah is in there. It's more in the breath as we complete the all. So all pervading, and then all pervading. So when we do this together, feel that purr. What a perfect word. The all purring within, feel that purr within. And then what takes place on bay, this expansion, and then ding, it's like the dinkshes. The vibration goes out on that ding. So let's intone that together. So tuning to the vibration and the meaning of these ideal qualities in our language activates the imagination and that impression of the ideal. And following all pervading, the call of praise to the divine ideal, to God, is fulfilled in the only being. And we may remember the movement that accompanied that phrase, which was this standing upright with our arms at our side like the vertical stroke of the Arabic letter form, the alif, which brings that, it's a vertical stroke, which represents that line between heaven and earth that comes again down through this instrument of our being into earth. And it also symbolically represents the one, the only being. And only means no one and nothing more besides. I was having fun with the dictionary. Because it was like, wow, I didn't really know that. I mean, I use only in language all the time, but when I read that, no one and nothing more besides. This is the zikr phrase. La ilaha el Allahu. And I loved the way Murshid Hidayat Inayat Khan described the zikr phrase. He says this: none exists save God. God alone is. So it's this isness. It's this zikr that's at the beginning of the prayer song. Praise be to thee, most supreme God, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-pervading, the only being. So Murshid. In the Bible and in the other scriptures, we read that we should glorify the name of God. Is God raised higher by our worship? Is God made greater by our belief in God? The answer is that God is independent of all that a person can do for God. If a person worships God, believes in God, and glorifies God, it is for their own good. Belief in God serves the greatest and only purpose in life, for the fulfillment of which a person is born. That purpose is the attainment of that perfection which may be called divine. So we might ask ourselves and contemplate, what is my vision of that perfection which may be called divine? As Murshid teaches, the God ideal has been regarded by different people differently. Some have idealized God as the king of earth and heaven. Some have a conception of God as a person. Others think of God as an abstraction. Some believe in God, others do not. There are many ideas and many beliefs and different names, but all are striving after something in one way or another. If I were asked how many conceptions there are of God, I would say as many as there are souls. For all have some conception of God. Everyone knows God in some way and has their own picture of God, either as a man or a woman, as the absolute, as goodness, or as something beautiful or illuminating. Everyone has some conception. And even for the one who does not believe in God, the name exists. So with this teaching, we may recognize how our own conception of God changes, form, contracts, expands, or evolves throughout our life. In the beginning phrases of the prayer Saum, Hazrat Inayat Khan is offering us these qualities or attributes. And these attributes encompass a divine ideal that is broad enough to hold all of the ideals each of us may hold. So what is your conception of the God ideal at this time in your life? Murshid tells us the being of God is recognized by attributes. So what are the ideal qualities that express this divine ideal for you. And we have this opportunity to practice giving praise to our highest ideals of this divine perfection, imagining the only being who is the expression of all of those attributes. And as Murshid says, once imagination has helped a person to bring the presence of God before them, God is awakened in their own